Alright, so started at a slightly different spot because Drake disappeared. This guy disappeared. Co, Drakeu, kde jsi byl? Kde jsi byl, Drakeu? Proč jsi mě neposlouchal? See how he's feeling, see that guilty side? That guilty, that guilty look? No, tak běž ty. Yeah, you know, I mean, nothing, not a big deal. I was just calling him and, no běž ty, lumpe, you rascal. Yeah, I was just calling him, you know. I mean, classic, you know, he disappeared right around the corner, going for the feeder, you know, as usual. It's like his favorite spot to sniff out. And I called him as usual, right? And he didn't respond, so I called him again, no response. I called again, no response. You know, I was whistling as well, I was calling. So, got very suspicious and ran like hell to that spot to see what's going on. And he ran out of there, you know, quickly. And he was licking, you know, his mouth, his snout. So, not sure what happened, but whatever, you know. So yeah, I was asking him why he didn't came when I called him like 3-4 times. He always comes, you know. I mean, save when there is something irresistibly tasty, then he takes a long time to come and to respond, really. So yeah, I guess there might have been something that he licked or whatever, and yeah, so they gave a little different beginning to today's video. I actually almost forgot to turn on the camera, you know. It's like, not that I was like, you know, capturing and then I was like, oh, I'm not capturing the video, but I was like walking and I didn't have the harness on and anything, and I was just like talking to myself, and then I was like, oh wow, hold on, I'm actually doing this whole thing every day, you know. Let's put on the harness and start capturing. So I almost forgot. By the way, there's up there, it's probably too small for you to see the details, and yeah, but there's a large bird flying up over there, and that is a heron, a gray heron, Ardea cinerea in Latin, and it's a huge bird, really. And the reason why I know it's that bird is because there's a little bit of a way to there's a way to tell I don't know, a stork and a crane and heron apart, and they're all very large birds, you know, like stork, crane, and heron. But the differences are between them is that heron, when it flies, it has its neck folded into this sort of an S shape, you know, sort of like that thing that you have underneath your sink. So that kind of looks like a heron's neck when it's flying. It just doesn't extend it all the way. It just folds it into this S shape and puts it closer to its body. And that's when you see a large bird flying overhead and it has this S shape and it's got this neck folded, there you know that it's a heron. And when the neck is extended, then you know that it is either a crane or a stork. The difference is there to know whether it's a crane or a stork. To be quite honest, I have not seen many cranes at all, let alone cranes flying, you know. They're not very common here. And in this particular region, not even storks are as common, which is kind of always surprised me, you know, whenever I'm somewhere outside, somewhere in a either different region or even different country, and I see storks there, they're kind of like how to put, like a novelty for me, really, because I don't see storks around here, you know, for some reason. And so for me, cranes are not a very common sight at all, you know. Storks, I see them very rarely, but not much. And by the way, there's a little call here, and we are hearing that one. That one. It's not very loud and not as audible. But it's definitely there, and I'm gonna let you know if I'll hear it again so that we can talk about it a bit more. I'm not sure if there is a point in talking about it now because I'm not sure if you could hear it properly. Anyway, it's a call that is coming up here every here and then, you know, every there and then, and it's a species of a tit that we haven't talked about yet. I think we talked about every species that is out there, save for that one. Yeah, well, we're gonna hear it again, I'm sure. It's not an uncommon sight here or uncommon occurrence, and this is actually sort of a preferred habitat. So, no, that wasn't it. So, not a very uncommon bird, unlike cranes or storks, and especially cranes, because cranes are definitely not very common, and they actually have been, as far as I recall, they've been very close to actually almost, you know, being extinct in this country a couple decades back, and they kind of bounced back after that, and now they're becoming more and more stable, the population, and there are more individuals and more nesting grounds and all that. But I haven't seen crane for years, yeah. But the way you're gonna distinguish and know that it's either a stork or a crane is that their necks are extended. That's what I wanted to say. Sorry for that to take me so long to tell you. Yeah, cranes and storks have their neck extended. And probably the way to tell crane and a stork apart is that you'll have cranes that usually, I believe, will fly together, you know, because storks are, because cranes are sort of like group species, you know. They like to be, they have their like communities, and they like to be kind of in even if smaller, but generally in groups, you know. And especially when they migrate, you're gonna see them doing those formations, you know, like geese and ducks and other similar birds do. Then cranes will do the same thing. So you'll know, you'll see a formation of large birds. Then, you know, with extended necks, you know, long necks, that too, you know, long necks and long legs that they will be behind them, you know, oh, these are cranes. Whereas storks are more of individualists, you know. Whenever you see a stork, I mean, for instance, whenever I recall seeing a stork, either black stork or a classic common white stork, they're alone, you know. Either they're foraging somewhere on the field, or you can see black stork often like flying high above some like forest, you know. Then usually it's alone, you know. You don't see them in formations, you don't see them in groups. And you might see a pair, you know, in the breeding season, but you would see, you know, a sort of a flock of storks, you know. So that's kind of, I would say, how you would tell them apart regarding cranes and storks. But the important distinction there is the herons have their necks folded, cranes and storks have their necks extended. So even though I didn't have my glasses, as usual, I immediately saw, yeah, that is a heron. And since, you know, gray herons here are an extremely common sight, you know, they're the #1 heron species here, and they're very, very rarely, they're like white, is it white herons? I'm not sure, but they're, you know, basically just herons, but they're big and they're white, you know, so they're probably going to be named white herons, you know, in English. That's my guess. And it's Ardea alba, you know, so even the Latin name is like, you know, a white heron. So these are like quite rare, you know, you don't see these around much. And whereas the gray herons, they're everywhere in the fields, on the ponds, you know, very, very common bird here. So, and sometimes, you know, sometimes they even make that sound, like you don't even have to see them. They make this very loud, harsh call, you know. They're like, you know, I can't really produce it, but it's like, you know, something like that, like very kind of, it doesn't sound nice, you know, and it's loud and it's harsh. So that's also a way to tell them apart and distinguish them. So yeah, so that was a bit about herons and storks and what's their name? Cranes. And yeah, that's about that. And maybe we're gonna come across that bird that was calling in there. It's like the least common of all the tits, you know. It's very beautiful, very striking bird. And Drake is smelling something again here, you know. That is definitely suspicious. Yeah, I definitely think there is something. What is it, Drake? Yeah, there's definitely animal hidden in there, I believe. Yeah. And he seems a little afraid, so my guess is that they're boars. You know, actually it's the season for, I think it might start to be the season for boars to have piglets, you know, to have young. So could be, and that is a very wild guess, but it actually happened in the past. And actually right over there it happened at the same spot, you know. There might be a female boar laying low and freshly having offspring, you know, or maybe just being what do you call it? Well, I believe there is sort of scientific term, gravid. Anyways, she's pregnant, you know, might be pregnant with piglets, and it's just laying down and laying low, you know, and just resting. And so either could have already given birth, but I would kind of imagine that they would be allowed, like those piglets, or it's waiting to have those piglets and it's laying down there and keeping low profile, you know. But Drake is like curious and kind of afraid and scared, you know, which he usually is of boars, you know. So that's my very wild guess, you know. And it actually happened in the past, you know, like actually on that very spot, we saw a female boar with piglets, and it was extremely cute, you know. And I wish I had a camera back then, because that was absolutely one of the most amazing experiences I ever had, you know, walking around here, you know, those little piglets, you know, like a little piglet train, and they were passing. I'm gonna tell that story next time, you know what, because I don't want to just stand here and tell you that story while I'm being stationary right at the end of the walk. So, you know, let me cover that story next time, okay? All right, I'm signing off.